3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
From the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Wednesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. 4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X, whatever you want to call it, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. All righty, we got to start the show off today with this article that dropped from the ESPN, and it was authored by longtime Philadelphia Eagles reporter Tim McManus, and Jeremy Fowler did contribute to this story. So I don't think there's really anything all that new from this article. We all know, if you followed the Eagles last year, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni didn't have a warm, fuzzy relationship. And that is something to monitor and something to watch this upcoming season. we knew that Nick Sirianni, as you get set for this season, is going to take a more hands-off approach with the offensive side of the ball. And they're now going to trust Kellen Moore, which I actually have a problem with in terms of you're trusting Kellen Moore to save this, when Kellen Moore was at one time a young, up-and-coming coaching candidate, right? He was going to be a head coach in the NFL, and even though statistically you could say that he did well in Dallas, their offense did not perform well in the big games, and he bounced around, and he's still an offensive coordinator and has made a bunch of lateral moves and never ascended to being a head coach in the NFL. So I do think Kellen Moore is a fine offensive coach, but I do think there is a bit of him being overrated than what people think. But you go into this season with the Eagles, and there is no doubt that the Eagles have the talent to win a Super Bowl. There's not many more talented rosters in the NFL than the Philadelphia Eagles. Even without Jason Kelce, there are Pro Bowlers, multiple Pro Bowlers on that offensive line. Jalen Hurts, even with the second half struggles last year, is still a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You have an explosive 1-2 punch at the wide receiver position with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You have an underrated tight end in Dallas Goedert. As long as he could stay healthy, you know how good Saquon Barkley could be. Are there questions in the secondary? Sure. Are there questions with losing Hassan Reddick? Sure. But last year, the Eagles' scheme defensively, it can't get worse. It was so rancid last year through Desai and then also Matt Patricia when you look back at the Eagles' defense. So I'm not saying that the Eagles have no concerns and no questions about them, but a lot of teams in the NFL have questions about them. The Eagles, though, they are a team in the NFC where you know for a fact they're a top 3 team in the NFC. If you want to put the 49ers in front of them, you can. If you want to, let's say, put, I don't know, the Lions in front of them, you can. But outside of that, there's not many teams that you could put in front of them. Like the Rams, I'm high on the Rams this year. That's premature. The Packers, I like the Packers this year. That's premature. You can't tell me the Eagles on paper aren't a top 3 team in the NFC. But when you have problems in the locker room, that can derail a season. And we saw it last year. Even when this team was humming at 10-1 with the record that suggests that they were great, there were games that they were winning where I said it over and over and over again on this show. Man, it's impressive. They haven't played their best brand of football yet, and they only have 1 loss on the year through 11 games on the season. So wait till they hit that next gear. Wait until they start to actually play some good football. And that didn't happen down the stretch. And not only did that not happen, that was one of the more pathetic performances in the second half of a season that I've ever seen watching the NFL. And I do think that it derives from the locker room problems. Whether it was an icy relationship between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni that went through the entire locker room and significantly impacted the season and derailed the team where after they beat Kansas City, tell me a fan in the NFC that didn't think that team was going to a Super Bowl. And that team is going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl in back-to-back years. And I know many people from Philadelphia. I went to Temple. I lived in Philadelphia for 3 years after I spent 4 years there at Temple University. That fan base was so confident, and they had every right to be so at 10-1, even with some of the problems they were seeing. And down the stretch, they won 1 lousy game. And that only win came up against the Giants. They lost the game to the Giants, but they beat the Giants one other time. So when I look at this season, what's my biggest question with the Eagles? It's what does Nick Sirianni do? That's my question. What the heck does Nick Sirianni do? He's a head coach that lost control of the locker room last year. He's a player's coach, but last year he was a doormat. Players like Nick Sirianni. You know, the majority of the team likes Nick Sirianni because they could take their feet and walk all over him. And if you don't believe me, look what happened in that locker room last year. That locker room was a disgrace last year. So he doesn't manage the locker room well. He's telling you going into the season, yeah, I'm going to have more of a hands-off approach on the offensive side of the ball. So what does he do? And I get it. Nick Sirianni has exceeded expectations. When he was hired, people thought he was the village idiot. People were laughing. And remember when Doug Peterson got hired? I was there in Philadelphia. I was at those press conferences. It was a similar feel. Doug ended up winning a Super Bowl. It felt like we were seeing Doug Peterson 2.0 when he was going to shut everybody up. And in his first year after the flower comments, still found a way to put that team in the playoffs. That quite frankly didn't have any business being in the playoffs. The next year, got to a Super Bowl. And their inability to close out the Chiefs, which I get is easier said than done, but when you're up by 10 in a Super Bowl, you know, it's not a good look when you lose it. Especially when Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field and he outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the big game. But since then, and that was only, you know, you're going back 2 seasons, because then you had the disaster of last year. Since that moment, so basically a season later, all that great momentum and all those great feelings about Nick Sirianni have just evaporated into thin air. Because I go into this season and I just ask, what is Nick Sirianni? Is this guy just like a cheerleader? Because the players aren't respecting him in the locker room, that's for sure. They're walking over him in the locker room. He's not going to be as hands-on on offense. And oh yeah, by the way, him and the quarterback don't get along. So think about what the Eagles elected to do this offseason. The Philadelphia Eagles elected to bring back Nick Sirianni with a roster that is more than capable of not only getting to the Super Bowl, but winning the Super Bowl. And they're electing to trust a coach that, yes, he's been to the playoffs all 3 years in Philadelphia, but with how last year ended, there are significant questions with him. And they're gambling on Nick Sirianni to not be a problem this year. He better get to an NFC championship game, and he better figure out this relationship and significantly improve this relationship with Jalen Hurts, because if he doesn't, I've seen this before, and I know how it will end. It will end with the player with the lucrative contract getting the coach fired. Because the Eagles have a lot more invested in the success of Jalen Hurts than they do in the success of Nick Sirianni. And if you say, Zach, you're being too tough on the guy, he's coached in a Super Bowl, you know, everyone wanted to laugh at this guy and poke fun at this guy, and he's been in the playoffs for 3 years, I'll ask you 3 questions. Would you rather have Nick Sirianni entering this season as the head coach of the Eagles or Bill Belichick? If you say Sirianni, you're a fool. Would you rather have Jim Harbaugh coaching the Eagles this season, or would you rather have Nick Sirianni? If you say Nick Sirianni, you're a fool. And then I'll throw one more name out there. What about Mike Vrabel? Maybe you could have more of a conversation with that. But Mike Vrabel didn't have the talent that Nick Sirianni's had. And I've seen Mike Vrabel with Tennessee make an AFC championship game and turn them into a consistent playoff team. Personally, I would rather have Mike Vrabel, because Mike Vrabel is a player's coach, but the players don't walk all over him like they do with Nick Sirianni, who's also a player's coach, but the players walk all over him. And that's the part to me that I'm still incredulous about. That the Eagles with the Super Bowl roster, and they've been right there, and they've been close, and they've been trying to get a second Lombardi trophy, right? When Lane Johnson was telling you, we're about to become a dynasty and all that stuff, right? That's what Doug Peterson and Howie Roseman were saying. Oh, this is going to be a consistent feeling. I was at those press conferences. Remember Lane Johnson? Oh, yeah, you know, Belichick and Brady, those guys have no fun in New England, but all they do is win. You know, we have fun, we win. They haven't won a Super Bowl since. Haven't won a Super Bowl since. And they have the talent to do so. But they're putting all of their poker chips in the middle of the table, and the guy pushing those chips in the middle of the table is Nick Sirianni, where it's a big question mark, and there's a lot of ambiguity centering around Nick Sirianni. I almost feel bad for Nick Sirianni because they basically have emasculated him. All right, Kellen Moore's running your offense. You got to improve with limited contact with your quarterback on the relationship. And what do? Those are what does Sirianni do? And to me, with the team that could easily get to a Super Bowl this year, I would feel a lot more confident with Belichick, with Harbaugh, and with Mike Vrabel than I do with Nick Sirianni. And that gamble by Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, I hope it doesn't come back to bite them in the you-know-what. Because it would be a shame with the talent that this team has if the locker room still can't get along. And I appreciate Sirianni went in front of the team and said last year was on him, but Jalen Hurts also has to shoulder the blame as well. And when you're fighting between two grown men, and when one makes the first move and kind of genuflects to the quarterback, I think that's another instance in a locker room where the players walk all over the coach, where that's just going to continue to happen again. So this story comes out. It will annoy the Eagles. It annoys Jalen Hurts. I thought the most fascinating detail, the only thing I learned from this was that Jalen Hurts called Wink Martindale to discuss how he viewed the Eagles' offense before, I guess, their playoff game up against the Buccaneers. And remember, they went up twice against the Giants at the end of the season, and Wink at the time, who had a very contentious end in New York, he was the defensive coordinator of the New York Giants. So, yes, you could kind of frame that as, Jalen's doing anything to get better, even if it's unconventional. But it's like, we don't have the answers in our locker room. I don't trust the coaches in our locker room. So let me go to an organization that, quite frankly, isn't a winning organization right now and ask their defensive coordinator. Because if they could beat us one time and play us close the other time, they have something, and that's like the bottom, like one of the bottom teams in the league, a bottom 6 team in the league when you look at the draft order. If they were able to figure us out, well, I got to know what they could see from a more simplistic view because we obviously have more talent than them. And they were lucky to win one game up against the Giants, if we're just being honest. So that was the only thing I thought was fascinating. But Jalen Hurts is going to be annoyed with how all this stuff does come out. And let me play you a little excerpt. I haven't heard this yet, but I've just read the quotes. I'm curious to see if it's as good as what it reads because it sounded very confrontational. But here was Jalen Hurts with the Philadelphia media a few hours ago after they wrapped up another day of training camp.
What was the key piece of advice that Wink gave you that kind of you could take into this season?
I'm curious to see where is this coming from randomly, this Wink stuff.
There was a report from ESPN this morning that said he contacted him.
Before the Bucs game.
Something so long ago. Why is that relevant now?
I didn't write it.
First we heard it
out today.
Yeah.
Who wrote it?
I wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why is that relevant now?
Why is it relevant?
Yeah.
Trying to give proper context from what happened last season so we have a better understanding of where we are now.
Okay. Well, I think for certain things, I appreciate what you guys do and everything you guys bring to attention and sometimes the understanding. I think sometimes people are only able to know what they understand. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know. But in that regard, I think, where we are is you have reports and you have rumors and then you have reality. And, we're in reality right now. And we got different people doing different things and we have different responsibilities in their natural nature. But ultimately, we're just attacking it day by day. But my natural nature is to block out the external factors.
All right, here's my follow-up. Hey, Jalen, Zach Gelb from the Philadelphia Inquirer. What's the reality then? Do you have a good relationship with Nick Sirianni? Did you show him respect last year? Did you guys get along in the locker room? Did the players walk all over the coach last year? And why should this year be different from than what it was at the end of last year? Those would be my follow-up. Because the reality of the situation is the quarterback of the Eagles and the head coach of the Eagles aren't on the same page. That's the reality. And I just hope it doesn't derail the Eagles season this year. But when you have reporters having this information, the locker room is an honest place. And I do think it's going to impact the Eagles. Not where they're going to be trashed this year. I still think they're going to win the division. But I don't see them getting to the Super Bowl this year because those are tough things to work through when the head coach doesn't have respect in the locker room, regardless of what the players say. And for Jalen to not understand that this is a storyline that follows the team until they prove it on the field, quite frankly, is a lame approach by the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And this isn't the first time where Jalen hasn't handled this topic well in front of the press. This was in the article. Addressing the media in the final day of minicamp in early June, Hurts was asked about Siriani. What have you noticed about Nick being open-minded to change up the offense like he has? What does that say about him? Really easy question, right? Like, you would expect the response to be, oh, he's willing to do whatever it takes for the team to win. His response, he said, followed by a pause and a short closed mouth laugh. I mean, that's a great question. I don't know that I know the answer to it. Wah, wah, wah. The Eagles have the talent to get to the Super Bowl. There is no doubt about that. They have the talent. But there's still a chemistry problem with the Philadelphia Eagles. And it baffles me that they still thought to themselves, oh, we're going to bring back Nick Sirianni when you could have got Jim Harbaugh. Chargers job, come on. Pales into comparison to the Eagles job. You could have got Bill Belichick, who just needed more talent. Eagles have so much talent. And even Mike Vrabel would have been a better choice than Nick Sirianni. And that, to me, is an unacceptable move by the Eagles this year to just double down on what happened a year ago when last year, quite frankly, was a bleep show. And it was a complete and utter disgrace. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Do you believe that Nick Sirianni will prove me wrong this year? Do you believe that the Eagles are going to be able to find a way to move these problems aside for the better part of the team? 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. When we come on back, is Brandon Aiyuk going to be on the Pittsburgh Steelers come week one? We'll discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
This is the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network, and it is the Zach Gelb Show. So here's the latest on Brandon Aiyuk. I told you this was a fear of mine, that Brandon Aiyuk was just trying to use the Patriots. Because it was reported that the Patriots made an offer because he can negotiate with teams. The 49ers have allowed him that right. And the Browns and the Patriots, I guess, have agreed on what the trade compensation would be or the framework of that deal. And when they got to the contract part, it was reported that the Patriots offered at least $30 million a year. Where, don't get me wrong, Brandon Aiyuk is a good player. He's a number one wide receiver. He just had over 1,300 yards this past season with all those names around him on the offensive side of the ball. So I do believe he is a genuine number one wide receiver. But the Niners offered him $26 million a year. And you look at what the Patriots offered, which was $30+ million a year. That's the Patriots pretty much coming close to resetting the market at wide receiver. So the Patriots, because they're not an attractive destination right now, they had to swing big. So I appreciate Elliott Wolf swinging big, but when you get the feeling you're just being used, then you got to pull out, and that's what the Patriots did. They are out, according to Adam Schefter, on trading for Brandon Aiyuk, and they're just going to try to make Baker out of UCF a really good wide receiver, Polk out of Washington a really good wide receiver as well, and inevitably, when the next big-name wide receiver comes available, they're going to try to go pounce on that wide receiver. They tried with Calvin Ridley. Ridley said, don't want to go to Foxborough. I'll go to Nashville. They tried with Brandon Aiyuk. He's like, rather go back to the 49ers, rather go to Cleveland, go to Pittsburgh, or just use the Patriots to get the offer up from whatever the Browns or the Steelers are reportedly offering. Now, here's what I'll say. I think he's going to wind up either back in San Francisco or on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not saying it's impossible for him to land with the Cleveland Browns, but I do think there is some merit to one of the theories that we threw out the other day, that this was the Steelers or the Aiyuk camp releasing these teams, and the Steelers the 49ers releasing the teams yesterday of the Patriots and the Browns, And what could have happened is, okay, the 49ers put out the Patriots and the Browns to then maybe try to tell the Steelers, okay, you got to up your offer because we're close to getting a deal done. Or Aiyuk could have released out who the teams were, the Patriots and the Browns, because maybe he really wants to go to the Steelers. And if you throw out a rival like an AFC North team in there, maybe that makes the Steelers get a little bit more serious and take this more seriously in terms of trying to get a deal done. And it seems like that's the case. Whoever leaked it, I don't know. But all the talk today is Steelers for Brandon Aiyuk. So here was the misnomer with Brandon Aiyuk. Money, we thought, was the number one priority. If it was all about the money and only about the money, well, he would have been going to New England today and getting a physical. Because New England was willing to write pretty much a blank check for Brandon Aiyuk. But where Aiyuk comes from, which is the San Francisco 49ers, where they are a Super Bowl contending team each and every year, I do believe he's trying to get the best of both worlds. Well, he'll get more money than what the 49ers offered him, which was roughly $26 million a year. And there's sometimes organizations that players could say are winning destinations that you have a loose understanding or a loose definition of what winning is, where you could talk yourself into that being a Super Bowl contending organization. Like, there is nothing Brandon Aiyuk could have said where we would have been like, yeah, I believe you. If he would have got to the Patriots and he would have said, hey, I feel like we could win a Super Bowl this year, that's why I elected to come here. Like, the Patriots are going to be lucky to win 5 games this year. 6 games. Right? There's no argument to be crafted that they are going to make a Super Bowl run, let alone even make the playoffs. But you look at Cleveland, they made the playoffs last year without having their starting quarterback. You look at the Steelers, they made the playoffs last year without having a quarterback. And both those teams have a ton of talent. So even though the Niners have more talent than, let's say, the Browns and the Steelers, you could talk about both of those spots being winning destinations, and also you got more money. But now my question is there a price that's too high for the San Francisco 49ers? Because you let him see what his value is. The Patriots were willing to go north of $30 million. What are the Browns offering? What are the Steelers offering? Because if they're offering like $28, $29 million, don't you just got to match that? If you are San Francisco? Like, you got to match that. Because San Francisco, I don't think it behooves to trade Brandon Aiyuk unless you're getting a proven player back. And Amari Cooper would be the player that's proven going back and really damn proven if you make the deal with the Browns. But if Aiyuk doesn't want to go to the Browns, you're just going to get back draft picks from the Steelers. But maybe the 49ers are at a point where they're like, we don't even care. We're just so tired with him. He's becoming a malcontent. Because I read a report today via NBC Sports Bay Area, and it was coming from the San Francisco Chronicle's Mike Silver. But it was one of those like websites where you got to pay to like San Francisco Chronicle to view it. So then NBC Sports Bay Area just puts out what everyone pretty much wants to read. And this is what it read. And honestly, I hit the floor laughing when I read this. San Francisco could deal Aiyuk at any moment after contract extension negotiations with him hit a wall this offseason, resulting in the star wideout requesting a trade. Shanahan is willing to move on from Aiyuk because he is bothered by the 26-year-old's behavior, including his recent bro hug with the coach. We talked about this stupid hug the other day, and the over-analysis of shaking the coach's hand. And, right, John Lynch wanted a hug. He didn't give John Lynch a hug, but then he dapped up, as the kids would say, Kyle Shanahan, and they went in for the bro hug. Let me be abundantly clear. Kyle Shanahan, who I do think is a tad overrated. Like, people think he's Lombardi. People think he's, like, the greatest coach ever. If he's the greatest coach ever, he would not have been up just as a head coach twice in the Super Bowl by 10 and not be able to slam the door shut. Don't even let me get to being up as an offensive coordinator 28-3 in the Super Bowl and walking out with a big fat L in your hand. But if that's the last straw that broke the camel's back, Brandon Aiyuk gave me a bro hug the other day and he showed me up on the practice field. Give me a break, Kyle Shanahan. That would be such a joke if that was the last straw there that broke the camel's back. Oh, we're willing to deal with all the videos. We're willing to deal with all the contract disputes and this being basically a public negotiation. But you give me a handshake and a hug on a practice field? Oh, that's it. We got to trade you. We're done with you. Like, what are we doing here? That's crazy. And Shanahan, we played the audio. He was even talking about how that's just how they say hello. So he played it off. That makes it hysterical that he pretended like it wasn't a big deal. And then it's Mike Silver, so I don't know if it's true or not, to be fair. But Mike Silver then puts out this report. Yeah, he's bothered by the 26-year-old's behavior, including his recent bro hug with the coach. You can't dap up your coach and go in for a hug? Oh, give me a break. You know what? I just saw our boss, Ryan Hurley, walking around here. I'm going to go try that. I'll go give Ryan a bro hug. Dap him up, go in for the hug. Then see if he's like, oh, that's it. We're moving Zach Gelb back to nights. Oh, we're firing Zach Gelb. We're getting rid of him. Like, come on. What the heck are we doing? I thought I was reading The Onion. And then I'm like, oh, no, this is on NBC Sports Bay Area from Mike Silver, San Francisco Chronicle, longtime NFL reporter. A freaking bro hug. Oh, yeah. Send him to Cleveland. Send him to Pittsburgh. If that's true, the Niners are never going to win a Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan. And they've been so close. They have been pretty much just so close in striking range to the tippy top of the mountain. They've been so close to standing on top of the mountain and being like Johnny Drama in Entourage and screaming, victory! But if their coach is this soft that a hug from one of his players is like, yep, we got to get rid of him. Give me a break. If the Niners are tough, if the Niners are smart, they'll tell him, Brandon Aiyuk, we're putting up with all your crap. Because we're all in to win a Super Bowl. Unless we get Amari Cooper, that's the only place we'll trade you. Because the Steelers don't have a proven play that they're going to give on the offense side of the ball. So unless we get Amari Cooper from the Browns, we're not trading you. And if you don't like it, sit out. Because you are under contract still. That's what I would do. But if you have Shanahan's like, oh, he went on the practice field and he gave me a bro hug. Oh, please. That's weak loser mentality. That is soft mentality. That is not a guy that I want coaching my team if that story is true. Now, I do have great skepticism if the story is true. Like nothing that we read earlier from Tim McMahon is what I have skepticism about. Nothing. When it comes to the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. This story by Mike Silver, that's what really did it for you? That's what really pushed you over the edge? A bro hug. Come on. But I do think it feels like it's either going to be get traded to the Steelers or go back to San Francisco. But the other question is, with the Niners allowing him to kind of test the market, basically, are we already at a point where this relationship is fractured beyond repair? That doesn't matter, even if the Niners came back and said $30 million a year. You know, does that even matter? So right now, you put a gun to my head. I say that by the end of the weekend, Brandon Aiyuk to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And oh boy, I honestly, I may drive out to Pittsburgh. I am going to Pittsburgh for the Springsteen concert. So maybe that could line up. Hopefully that lines up. Introductory press conference of that Sunday Springsteen at night. Because I would love to get to that press conference and say, Brandon, do you think Kyle Shanahan was annoyed? You think he was annoyed that you dapped him up? Heck, how about the company flies me to San Francisco? If they're not going to ask these questions, I will. Hey, Kyle, were you annoyed about the bro hug that Brandon Aiyuk gave you? Because Mike Silver says you were livid. All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We got some either or questions coming up next in college football. Latest Infinity Sports Network update first. Here he is, the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
We're not hugging. This report sponsored by Progressive Insurance. It's always welcome, though. Protect your home and auto. Save when you bundle.
Come on, Act. We love you, Act. Yeah.
There you go. Gotta have some love in the room. So, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your home and auto. Save when you bundle. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Jim Harbaugh is gone from Michigan, but was hit with a 4-year show cause penalty for impermissible contact with players and recruits during COVID. Lauri Markkanen, the latest NBA player to hit the jackpot, getting a 5-year extension from the Jazz worth $238 million. Baseball this afternoon, the Diamondbacks in the second wild card spot in the National League right now lead the Guardians in the first of 2 at Progressive Field 7-3 in the top of the 9th. The Cubs lead the Twins 4-2 top of the 4th, while the Astros have an early 2-0 lead over the Rangers in the bottom of the 4th. And the White Sox and A's are just underway a day after the White Sox ended their 21-game losing streak, which tied an American League record. Getting underway shortly, the first of 2 in the Bronx between the Yankees and the Angels. U.S. women's basketball team is in action against Nigeria in the quarterfinals. That is just underway, and the U.S. in front 6-4. I'm Rich Hacker.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Infinity Sports Network, and it is the Zach Gelb Show. Stu, I just gave Ack a hug during his update on the air, poking fun at Kyle Shanahan reportedly being perturbed at Brandon Aiyuk for giving him a bro hug on the practice field a few days ago. Do you think Ack has already showered? Do you think Ack has already changed his shirt and burned that shirt that I just hugged him in? Just wondering.
Yes, to all the above.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think it's either or. Like, did he just change or did he burn the shirt? I think it's all the above.
There's somebody who preached cleanliness before COVID started. It was Ack. He had the wipes before everyone else had the wipes.
He had the mask. He had the gloves. He had all that stuff. He knew that this place was a petri dish even before COVID happened. There is no doubt about that. Ack probably has, like, you say black tie at a wedding, Ack's version of black tie is having a hazmat suit, okay? That's how he probably has so many hazmat suits that he would love to wear to the office. Okay, let me give you Ask the Pros first, and then we will get to a little either or when it does come to this upcoming college football season. It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets to ask us a question. It is brought to you by our friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs, guaranteed low prices, and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Stu, hit the music.
All right, Zach.
Well, I'm actually annoyed, by the way.
Okay. Uh-oh.
So I was looking at the Nebraska football schedule, and there may or may not have been an offer extended to me to go to Nebraska, Colorado, week 2 in Lincoln this year. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on NBC. Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Raiola. And I have a wedding. That's Saturday night.
You have a lot of weddings this year.
I do. I'm at that age. All my friends are getting married. You know, I turned 30 coming up on Friday, and I have a wedding. And it stinks because not only can I not go to the game, but it's going to be tough to watch that game because I always feel uncomfortable being the dude at the wedding with the phone in hand watching the game. So I'm a little bit upset that I'm in all likelihood going to miss Raiola up against Shedeur Sanders because that was a game that I circled before the season starts of, wow, I definitely want to watch that. But what do you got for me question-wise, Stu?
All right, college football edition of either or. First one, more likely to win the national title this year, Ohio State or Georgia?
I'm going to go Georgia because I don't have any questions about Kirby Smart. I do have a lot of questions about Crying Day. And also from a quarterback-wise, Carson Beck is a much better quarterback than what Ohio State has. Like, Ohio State has such a talented roster, and they have improved their quarterback situation from Kyle McCord a year ago, but I still think there's a question mark on Will Howard. I like that Will Howard said, hey, it's championship or bust this year, but I trust the Dogs more than the Buckeyes.
Speaking of Beck, more likely to win the Heisman Trophy, Carson Beck or Dylan Gabriel?
So I did a Sports Minute about a month ago, and I was like, all right, I'm taking Carson Beck to win the Heisman Trophy this year. And since then, I've been tossing and turning with one other name, and it's Dylan Gabriel. Now, both are in the Big Ten now. And when you look at Gabriel, he walks into Oregon. We just saw Bo Nix have so much success, and Gabriel is more accomplished than what Nix was when he elected to go from Auburn to Oregon, and we know Gabriel's been in a bunch of spots. I'm going to say that it is Carson Beck, because I do think Georgia's going to win the SEC. Where you look at Oregon, I think they probably finish second, and I think that's going to be the difference with two guys that will put up some prodigious numbers this year.
Will Colorado get to a bowl game this season, yes or no?
Now, I don't have confirmation on this yet, but there is a very good chance. He joined us this time last year. A source told me that there is a very good chance that Coach Prime's going to be joining us next week. That's what I was told on August 14th. The same person that got him for me last year said they're going to get him for me again this year on August 14th. So, should I give you my answer before Coach Prime joins us or after Coach Prime joins us? How do you want the answer? Because if it's before, bowl game easily. If you want my true, honest opinion,
answer,
I think they're going to be a 5-win team.
Ooh.
So then they just will miss the bowl game.
But
next week, Coach, love you. Absolutely love you. I think you guys are going to a bowl game. Absolutely. I'll be a fraud.
Who will be the Texas quarterback at the end of the season? Their starting quarterback, Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning?
Quinn Ewers. The only way Quinn Ewers is not starting at the end of the year is if he's hurt, which has happened twice. And last year you saw Malik Murphy fill in. And the year before that, Arch Manning wasn't even with the program. But Quinn Ewers just took Texas to a college football playoff when it's a legit 4 teams, not a 12 team. There's big expectations for Quinn Ewers. First time in a while where Texas has national championship expectations. So, barring injury, it will be Quinn Ewers.
More likely to make the playoffs out of a tough SEC, LSU or Tennessee?
Because you got Nico Iamaleava. I know I didn't say that right. Iamaleava, I believe, is how you say Nico's last name. I'm going to say LSU. I like Heupel a lot, but Brian Kelly, we've documented this before. Everywhere he's gone, he's had big-time year 3s, so I think that will continue for LSU. I like Perkins on the defensive side of the ball, and I think Nussmeier will do enough for the Tigers of LSU. Go Tigers! And LSU will be having a lot of fun time with their family this upcoming year.
All right, more likely to get fired, Billy Napier or Mario Cristobal?
It's Billy Napier. Mario is one of their own. I think it's Billy Napier. I just, at least there's buzz about Miami this year. Not that I think that they will finish at the end of the year at a top 25, but even when they had Anthony Richardson, it was like ho-hum at Florida in terms of their on-the-field production. I think it's more likely that you will see Billy Napier fired than it is Mario Cristobal. But both coaches, big years for them.
All right, who will win the Big 12 this season, Utah or the field?
I got to take the field. I love Cam Rising. I love Kyle Whittingham. He is an underappreciated coach. To me, he's a top 5 coach in the sport. But you have so many good teams in the Big 12. I don't think there is a great team. It's perceived to be, and I understand why, that Utah is the best, especially where they're without their tight end and their quarterback last year. And now you have those guys back. But I will rock and roll right now with Kansas State and Chris Kleiman to find a way to win the Big 12. I'll take the field, though, on this.
All right, similar question. Who will win the ACC this season, Florida State or the field?
So there's been a little talk about Virginia Tech. There's obviously been talk about Clemson. Some people say maybe it's Miami, but I got to go Florida State. Mike Norvell, I'm a huge fan of his going back to Memphis. You got DJ Uiagalelei, and quite frankly, I probably wish a lot of things when we enter a college football season, but if I could wish one thing, it's that DJ Uiagalelei drags that pain-in-the-ass, pompous coach in Dabo Swinney up and down the field. And at the end, DJ Uiagalelei says, Dabo, Dabo. I want to see Dabo just get smacked by the Seminoles and DJU.
All right, who will finish?
So, by the way, to answer your question, Florida State.
Florida State.
To win the ACC.
Who will have the higher finish in the Big Ten this season, Penn State or Michigan?
We are Penn State.
Wow.
It's the Nittany Lions. Like, Michigan has a better defense. Michigan may have the best defense in the country with Graham and Johnson. Their offensive line's always going to be good. I think Edwards is more Edwards of 2 years ago than last year, even though everyone just watched the national championship game and he was great in the national championship game. Alex Orji is, honestly, the great question, the million-dollar question with Michigan. Not that Drew Aller is all that from what he was perceived to be, and they got Fleming this past year, but the playoff is basically designed for Penn State to get in, and I think with all the changes with Michigan, like Penn State at most should be a 2-loss team. I think Michigan's going to be like a 3 or 4-loss team, so I will take Penn State to do better in the Big Ten than Michigan. But that pains me to say because, man.
Yeah, I know it's tough.
I can't wait for James Franklin to get into this participation trophy playoff and then lose in the first round. And I hope he loses at home in front of those Nittany Lion fans. If my dear friend Pat Kraft is listening, the AD at Penn State, I apologize for that. But we can continue.
All right, last one, Zach. Which one of these Colorado teammates will be drafted first in the NFL draft? Shedeur Sanders or Travis Hunter?
Do the Shedeur Sanders. So you usually lean quarterbacks in this. Now, Travis Hunter is going to be the most explosive player in the draft. So if a team's picking at like 1 or 2, 3 that doesn't need a quarterback, could you usurp Sanders? Will Sanders be the first quarterback off the board? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Travis Hunter, even though it usually does gear towards quarterbacks going before Travis Hunter, but two-way player. He is sensational in the secondary and also as a wide receiver. All righty, we'll take a timeout. When we come on back, isn't it crazy? Anytime I used to talk to Sean Pendergast or Seth Payne, it was always something negative with the Texans, with that creep Jack Easterby and all those other dysfunctional messes that did occur in the Texans organization. Now we enter this year with the Texans, and it's like, oh, they went from the outhouse to the penthouse. We're going to preview the Houston Texans next, and we will connect down south with Sean Pendergast, the host of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. Will the Texans continue to advance this thing, and will they find a way to top even what they did a year ago? We'll talk to Sean Pendergast and preview the Texans next. Once again, this is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. You can hit us up social media at Zach Gelb, Instagram and Twitter, or you could always call us at 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Football season is right around the corner.
Holding himself, runs to the left, he's to the 5, Lamar's in, touchdown Ravens! They're going to have a championship game in Baltimore because the hay's in the barn!
Will it be your team's year to hoist the Lombardi?
In the shotgun, Mahomes, he runs and he throws, caught, touchdown, it's caught, Hardman caught the ball, the Chiefs have won! The Chiefs have won! The entire bench empties! Chasing Mahomes in the end zone. Their third Super Bowl in 5 years.
We preview all 32 teams right here on the Zach Gelb Show. The Houston Texans.
My next guest, he's like a fat kid in a candy store right now because he's used to just talking about new head coaches, dysfunctional front offices, who hates who. Now he has a stud quarterback. He has a stud head coach. And he has a stud young defensive end. The guy that has all those things is Sean Pendergast, the host of Payne and Pendergast on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. And also, he is a part of the Houston Texans radio network. Sean, a lot different this conversation will be than in previous years.
You know what, Zach? It's great to talk to you. It's great to see you. And yeah, every show that I go on over the last year, I feel like it's whoever the host is says the same thing. I'm like, man, it was much more adverse circumstances when we used to bring you on. And keep in mind, for a team that won 11 games in 3 years, I did a lot of national radio hits, way more radio hits than your average 11-win over 3-year team should have ever been doing. And a lot of it, as I heard you mention coming out of the last hour, Jack Easterby had a lot to do with that.
What a creep he was.
Yeah, a lot of really weird decisions by the franchise, but this is an organization now, Zach, that seems to have gotten a lot of things right. Like they're on a major parlay run right now. You know what I mean? And between moving on from Jack Easterby to moving on from Lovie Smith to hiring D'Amico Ryans, and then they just hit bomb after bomb in the draft the last couple of years. Yeah, it's a really good time to be a Houston Texans fan. It's a really fun time to cover the team, and it's really wild to see just how much attention they're getting from the national media. They're practicing in Ohio this week in Cleveland because they stayed up there after the Hall of Fame game last week, and they're playing in Pittsburgh on Friday. So rather than come back here to Houston, they chose to stay up there, and they're actually practicing at Nick Casario's old high school up in Ohio this week. And everybody's up there. The NFL Network is up there. ESPN is up there. I saw Diana Rossini reporting from there earlier this week from The Athletic. Kay Adams is up there doing her podcast. Like, it's a fun time, man, to be a Texan fan, no doubt.
I'm glad you brought up Caserio because you guys cover it a lot closer than we do. From a national standpoint, I feel like all we talk about is D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, and Will Anderson. There's a fourth person in there, and that's Nick Caserio. Tell me your experiences with him and what you've seen Nick Caserio do. And it just seems like he doesn't get enough of the credit for this whole thing.
I've gotten to know Nick pretty well in the 3 years that he's been here. He comes on our show very frequently. We're the only local show that he does radio with, me and Seth. And so we've gotten to know him, other than doing stuff on the Texans network, obviously. So we've gotten to know him pretty well, both on the radio and off the radio. And I would tell you this about Nick, just as a person, is that as you talk about the other three guys kind of getting, or the other, whatever other guys you name getting credit, and Nick kind of being in the back seat with all that, that's exactly where Nick wants to be. I don't think he doesn't want to be out in the forefront with all this. He makes it very clear that he's there to serve D'Amico. He is there. D'Amico is the guy who says, these are the things I need. And then Nick and his staff go out and find those things. They work very, very collaboratively together, which I think surprises a lot of people just because of where Nick comes from. I think people thought, because of the other people that have come out of New England, both in personnel and in coaching, they've tried to replicate Belichick, both in personality, style, maybe even their worldview of what a football team is supposed to look like. Nick has not done that. Nick is very un-Belichick-like in a lot of ways. And I think working collaboratively with a guy in D'Amico who really comes off that Shanahan tree, it's been really fascinating to watch. I think what people need to understand about Nick, too, is Nick inherited maybe the worst situation that any general manager has inherited in I don't know how long. And this is even before Deshaun Watson asked for a trade, and certainly well before Deshaun Watson was getting sued by 24 different women. Nick inherited no cap space, no draft picks, a ton of bad contracts, and then ultimately, shortly after he got here, a quarterback that didn't want to be here anymore, and then a quarterback who was untradeable because of his legal situation. And somehow Nick stood steady for a full year with Deshaun Watson in the building and hit a home run with that trade. Without that trade, Will Anderson is not a Houston Texan. Tank Dell is not a Houston Texan. Christian Harris is not a Houston Texan. There's 3 or 4 more guys that tangentially you can attach to that trade. But that was really the catalyst to get the roster sort of back in order. And then the hiring of D'Amico was ultimately the home run that's led to a lot of all these other things.
And it's crazy how that works, right? Because obviously he was a legendary Texan, but that job wasn't desirable. But because you had a guy that wanted to be there, they definitely outkicked their coverage at the time on who they were able to get as a head coach.
Yeah, we were really lucky that D'Amico is a former Texan, because I think even people here in Houston were like, he's not taking this job. I mean, this job has been awful the last 2 years. I don't think that I think the one big misconception was that if D'Amico were to not have taken this job, it would have been because they fired the previous 2 guys. Like, I don't think that mattered to D'Amico at all. I think D'Amico's confident enough in his coaching skills to know that I'm not getting fired after 1 year. I'm a good head coach. I think if he weren't to have taken the job, it would have been just because he felt like this was still a roster and a franchise that was kind of in disarray. But D'Amico had the benefit of knowing the McNairs personally, Cal and Hannah. And of course, Cal, the son of the late Bob McNair, who was the owner when D'Amico was a player here, and D'Amico is a revered player here. He had the benefit of knowing them, and I think they had a bad rap around a lot of the country because they'd made bad decisions in hiring Easterby, giving him all that power, some of the other things that they had chosen to do, giving Bill O'Brien a lot of power as well. The McNairs are good people who made some poor decisions, and now they're good people who are hiring great people to go do all of their jobs. And I think you're seeing the fruits of it right now.
Sean Pendergast here with us. So I put out my top 10 quarterback rankings. This was going back to like a month ago. And I had Mahomes 1, Joe Burrow 2, Josh Allen 3, Lamar Jackson 4, then CJ Stroud in at number 5 entering the season. How far are you willing to go with CJ Stroud entering this season compared to the rest of the NFL?
Yeah, 5 sounds about right. The rankings I've seen where he falls somewhere between like 5 and 7, and I see who's ahead of him in those rankings. Like I go, That looks about right now. His body of work is still only 1 year. I think the things too with CJ that even he would tell you he needs to work on in order to get into that strata of, Mahomes and in that top 3 area. Now keep in mind, we're talking about him top 5, top 7. So that's still in the upper quartile of quarterbacks in the league. But they as a team need to get better scoring touchdowns when they get down into the red zone. So I think CJ would tell you that. I think the other thing too, this is a team thing, but CJ is certainly culpable in this, is they had some real glitches last year in games that on paper they shouldn't have. They were 10-7 last year, and that included losses to the Carolina Panthers, Desmond Ridder in the Atlanta Falcons, the Jets with Zach Wilson.
Cost me my survivor pool, for crying out loud. I was down to 2 people. I took the Texans, and I didn't end up winning the frickin' thing.
So as well as anybody, you felt that pain. So I think it's going to be very different this year because there are very few of those types of games on the schedule this year. Their schedule is a massive step up in weight class. Those 4 quarterbacks that you just named ahead of CJ on your ranking, I think you just said you had him 5th. Yeah. They're all in the AFC for one thing, right? 3 of them are on the Texans schedule. The only one that's not is Joe Burrow, who CJ actually beat head to head last year in Cincinnati in week 10. So they play those 3 quarterbacks. Tua's on the schedule. Dak is on the schedule. Jordan Love is on the schedule. Caleb Williams is on the schedule. Jared Goff is on the schedule. And we haven't even named any of the guys in the division who CJ is all better than, but they've all had their moments in perception wise among fans. Trevor Lawrence has had, we don't know what he is. And then you got the 2 young guys, Anthony Richardson and Will Levis in the division. So it's a super fun schedule as long as you have a team that's equipped to handle it. And I think the Texans have assembled a team that's equipped to handle it.
And I love what they did as Sean Pendergast is here with us. Some teams would just rest off what they did a year ago. You got a bunch of young players. We're not going to be aggressive. We'll just be a little bit complacent and be happy with what resulted a year ago. And they made a big move to go get Stephon Diggs. And I think the biggest move they made this offseason was actually Danielle Hunter. Am I crazy for saying Danielle Hunter's a better move than Stephon Diggs?
I think Danielle Hunter was certainly that happened during free agency, like that mid-March period. Stephon didn't come till a few weeks later. So I thought it was interesting, Zach, in the offseason. People already knew the Texans were going to be a team that was going to have to be reckoned with even before free agency, just because, wow, they got this young quarterback and they've really built a nice core. D'Amico is the real deal as a coach, I think, all those things. Hunter was the one, that was the signing that really elevated them at that time. And then Diggs was like this finishing move off the top rope that came in to really put them in that strata. But yeah, and I think with Danielle Hunter, one, he's from here. So that was really cool. That probably helped in getting him signed, although they paid him well. They gave him $50 million guaranteed over 2 years. So, but I think where Danielle Hunter has really helped too is it's not just the 16.5 sacks that you're getting from Danielle Hunter or whatever it ends up being this year. By the way, he loves playing in D'Amico's defense more than his Minnesota defense because now D'Amico's just like, go get the quarterback. Whereas in Minnesota, he was doing a lot of read and react stuff, still winds up with double-digit sacks every year. But the exponential effect that Danielle Hunter is having on Will Anderson, who is maybe the most coachable, receptive player to knowledge that I've covered. If it's not him, it's CJ Stroud. It's these 2 guys that I've covered since I got here, at least doing radio here in 2007. Will Anderson's amazing, and Danielle Hunter has been a huge, huge influence on him and helping him get his game. So it's interesting, Zach, with a lot of these moves they've made. Caserio had tried the first 2 years where the roster was terrible to at least bring in guys with leadership qualities as free agents. They were all journeymen and the team was never going to be good, but at least the young guys were around guys who were pros. Now he's getting those same guys, except instead of, Rasheem Green, it's Danielle Hunter. Instead of Chris Conley, it's Stephon Diggs. Instead of Rex Burkhead, it's Joe Mixon. These are actual Pro Bowl level players who have those same leadership qualities, and they found young players who are all in love with the game of football and super receptive to this type of leadership.
And you're so right on Stroud and Anderson. I've had the pleasure of talking to both within the last year. For what we do, it isn't great. But if I was running an organization, I want my star players to sound boring when they're talking to the media. I want them to sound mature. I thought I was talking to guys that were like 35 and had, 10, 11, 12 years of experience in the NFL. So it is definitely impressive. Let me ask you about Diggs, though. So his last touchdown a year ago in the regular season was up against the Eagles on Thanksgiving weekend. His last 100-yard game went back to the middle of October. He still put up 1,000 yards a year ago. How much of the decline do you think we'll continue to see? Or was it just, hey, he hated being in Buffalo last year, him and Josh Allen had issues, and now you're going to expect him to be the Stephon Diggs of what we've seen prior to last year?
Yeah, I mean, Seth and I have spent a ton of time breaking this down on our show and off the air too, just going back and rewatching Diggs those last, 7 or 8 games, because the first half of the season he was leading the league in a lot of categories.
Yeah,
and then they changed offensive coordinators. They made Joe Brady, I should say, the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, and that's really where things started changing to the good for the Bills as a team, but to the bad for Stephon Diggs statistically. He started being used as a decoy. There were times where he was open, but Josh Allen was looking somewhere else. I say all that to say he's been the Texans' best offensive player in this training camp.
Wow.
Hands down. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the amount of time he spends talking to the young receivers, talking to guys on the defensive side of the ball. It's been really fascinating to watch because all the things that you hear about Stephon Diggs towards the end in Buffalo run completely contrary to what we've seen here in Houston. Now it's early. They haven't even played a regular season game yet, and there are way more mouths to feed in this offense than there were in the Buffalo offense last year with Mixon and Tank Dell and Nico Collins, who just got a big contract. Dalton Schultz is the tight end. He just got a big contract. So there's a lot more mouths to feed. I think they've got a quarterback who's better equipped to maybe handle the mercurial personalities of Diggs and other guys in CJ than maybe Josh Allen is. CJ is mature beyond his years, as you just alluded to. But Diggs has been amazing. If Stephon Diggs has taken a step back as a player, then the Texans have major problems defensively coming up this season. And I don't think they have major problems defensively coming up this season. So he's been really, really good in camp so far. So we'll see what happens. As far as like fantasy and stuff like that go, I'm staying away from all of them. I have week to week, I'm going to have no idea who's getting the 3 catches for 28 yards and who's getting 10 catches for 196 yards. It can be any of the 3 of those guys.
Wrap it up with Sean Pendergast. So a year ago, if we were talking to you this time last year, we were talking about the AFC South. Everyone say, look at the Jaguars. They had this great season, came out of nowhere, got the quarterback, and got the right coach, and boom, they were the second round of the playoffs. Jaguars didn't end up making the playoffs last year at 9-8. Is there at all any fear that the Texans take a step back this year?
I don't think there's big fear. I think it's certainly a possibility. Like I just said, I mean, I'm very surface level laid out what their schedule is, but it's not only the opponents they play. The league has handed them a lot of really difficult, there are a lot of really difficult holes on this golf course that the league has laid out.
And it's a good division now.
Yeah.
Even Tennessee, for being the worst team in the division, isn't like some pushover.
Well, and they're not acting like one either. I mean, they're making trades for L'Jarius Sneed and they're signing Calvin Ridley. Like, they're acting like a team that expects to do what the Texans expect to do this year. You have it's a great point, Zach. You have 4 teams in this division that are all acting like contenders. And you can't say that about a lot. There are certainly at least one team in most of the other divisions that are not acting that way. So that's a great point. And I think there'll be real tests. The Texans' schedule, the first 8 games are very manageable. I'll be disappointed if they're less than 6-2 through the first 8 games. But then 9, 10, and 11 are 3 primetime games in a row at the Jets, Sunday Night Football with the Lions, and then they play at the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. That'll be kind of the swing in the season right there. Those 3 games in the middle of the season, I think, is when we really find out what kind of team the Texans have. And then they're one of the 4 teams that plays 3 games in 10 days at Christmas time. They're one of those teams that plays Saturday, Wednesday at Christmas time. They play the Chiefs and the Ravens over those 2 games. So there's plenty of potential pitfalls for this team. I think they're an 11-6 football team, assuming health for the right people that need to be healthy for this football team. Because I just put so much trust in DeMeco Ryans. I just think the guy is, I think the world of the guy as a person and a head coach. I think he's fantastic.
You won the smack off, right? Several times?
5 times. 5 times. Yep.
What's more likely, the Texans win the Super Bowl this year, or whenever Rome does the smack off here on the Infinity Sports Network, that you win the smack off this year?
Texans. No, I think Texans for sure. I'm back in the smack off now. I've been back in since 2018, and I still finish fairly high every year. But the sense I get is that I'm kind of like what Ric Flair was at the end of his wrestling career. I'm just there to put the young guys over. You know what I mean? They get the rub from beating up on me in the smack off, and I'm totally cool with it.
You just get the appearance fee, right? You get the sign Hall of Famer on your name.
Oh yeah, big appearance fee for the smack off. Yeah, the adulation. I'm here for the adulation, Zach. You know?
Yeah, maybe you'll get some of that X money this year. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's true.
Sean, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Anytime, Zach. Good talking to you, man.
There he is, Sean Pendergast. Always enjoy when we get to talk to him, and I don't feel depressed after talking to him this time. You know, for years, I felt like I was doing therapy for Seth Payne and Sean Pendergast. When they would come on the show, it was so depressing because their football team was so depressing. Now everyone's all happy. So you know what that means. Texans don't have a good year this year, and then they all go back to being miserable. Nah, kid. All righty, we'll take a break. When we return, what's the future of DK Metcalf in Seattle? And also, where's Mike Vrabel going to be coaching next year? It is Zach Gelb Show right here, Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The fun continues on the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Sean McDermott. I think the biggest load of crap from last football season was the three of them after the issue that occurred right when, it was OTAs or training camp occurred, that, there was no big deal. Nothing really happened with Stephon Diggs. I don't know what the issue was, but Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs no longer had trust with one another, and Sean McDermott was clearly annoyed at Stephon Diggs. So you could take Stephon Diggs out of Buffalo, but his presence still remains, and there's still questions about Stephon Diggs. This was Josh Allen after a training camp practice. I think this was today, talking about Stephon Diggs. Listen up.
Steph's a great player, and what he brought to this team was special. Miss is I don't know if I'd say miss. He was a guy that was reliable. You can look to. He's going to have the juice each and every day. I'm sure he's bringing it over there in Houston. So definitely, you can't say that you don't miss that. But I am very happy with what we got going on here and how hard the guys have been working. And yeah.
So the question was, do you miss Stephon Diggs? So Stu, when you hear that answer, I'll just ask you a simple question. Was that Josh not trying to offend any of his other wide receivers? You're like, yeah, if you come out right away and say, yeah, I missed Stephon Diggs, maybe the other receivers get sensitive? Or is that just Josh Allen giving you the truth early on that even though Steph was a great player, they had a great time together early on, that, yeah, he's fine with Stephon Diggs no longer being there?
I think there's a little truth behind it, to be honest. The way it sounds, especially the way it read, but even after reading the quote and hearing how he sounds, yeah, I think there's some truth behind it that, okay, he's gone, not going to say no love lost, but I don't know. I don't think he's broken up about it.
We are fine. It's not like we're happy. It's not like we're elated, but we're fine that we elected to move in a different direction. It'd be like, Stu, if you moved to another show. And then someone asked me, Zach, do you miss Stu? And I was just like, it's a complicated question. Stu is good at his job, but we got great belief in the guys currently in our clubhouse right now. So, I don't want to say I don't miss him, but, you kind of miss it. Like, no one speaks that way. You're just trying to avoid the question and be politically correct, as people like to say. You don't miss him. You hated his guts at the end. You were like, all right, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. When Brandon Beane called you up and said, hey, we're trading Stephon Diggs to the Texans. But that's a big question. Who replaces Stephon Diggs in Buffalo? And sometimes, if you have a player who was a malcontent in a certain situation, sometimes just removing him instantly improves the team. But you still have to replace his production. Talking about wide receivers. So I just read Mike Reese, who covers the Patriots for the ESPN. The Patriots are willing to pay Brandon Aiyuk up to $32 million a year. And Aiyuk said, no, I don't want to go to New England. And the Patriots kind of sensed that he didn't want to go to New England, and they elected to pull out of the negotiations going on with Brandon Aiyuk. Now, at $32 million a year, that would have made him the second highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, tied with A.J. Brown. Number one is Justin Jefferson. So, Brandon Aiyuk is trying to get the best of both worlds here. He's trying to play with a good quarterback on a team that he could say is a winning destination. He's also trying to get paid more. So, in San Francisco, he has a quarterback that's good enough to win. They're only offering, though, $26 million a year. And going back to this last report by Mike Silver. I guess the straw that broke the camel's back is that Aiyuk gave Kyle Shanahan a bro hug, and now Kyle Shanahan's all upset about that, which is just loser mentality from Kyle Shanahan and a sensitive mentality from Kyle Shanahan, if that's true. However, though, you keep on seeing a trend. We just talked about Stephon Diggs, big wide receiver on the move. A.J. Brown, right? Big wide receiver, is on the move. You keep on going and going and going around the league. Like Brandon Aiyuk, it feels like he's about to be on the move. Tyreek Hill even got dealt. Devontae Adams got dealt. It's crazy with all the deals that have been given out this year. St. Brown got a new deal. A.J. Brown got a new deal. Justin Jefferson got a new deal. Tyreek Hill got more guaranteed money. Jalen Waddle got a new deal. DJ Moore got a new deal, which, by the way, I was watching Hard Knocks last night. I don't know about you, Stu. If you signed a contract that was paying you $27.5 million a year, you'd like crack a smile, right?
Yeah, I feel like I'd be pretty happy about that.
I think you'd do the Macarena. I think you'd do the worm, crying out loud. I would pay to see Stu do the worm. I don't feel like you were a big worm guy.
No.
Yeah. So I'm watching Hard Knocks last night, which it's the Bears in Hard Knocks, and then the AFC North is the in-season Hard Knocks. So they called up Ryan Poles. He calls someone down in the practice field. He's like, hey, when you get a moment, maybe you're doing special teams, just like discreetly bring DJ Moore up here. And they basically said, hey, we agreed upon the deal. We're good to go. We just need you to sign it. And like, he barely even cracked a smile. Like, you knew he was happy. But you'd think, hey, you just get that call up from practice, $27.5 million. Like when he's with his teammates, he showed more emotion. But in that room, like I'm jumping up and down and I'm delirious and I'm going nuts. But I will say this. In terms of maybe the next big wide receiver on the move, once the Aiyuk stuff settles, isn't it weird we have not heard a peep about DK Metcalf this offseason? Because DK is one of those guys, he's good. We'll see if he can be great. He's been productive so far in the NFL. This is a big season for him where he could even already improve his value. But he's been in the league since 2019, and he's had over 1,000 yards 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons, 372 catches, 5,332 yards, and he has 43 touchdowns. So he's good. You have a big season, though, this year. You're starting to put yourself in the conversation of being a $30 million a year wide receiver. Because the quarterback prices are out of hand, the wide receiver prices are out of hand, and if you're a pass rusher, right, those prices get pretty lucrative. And obviously left tackle. But I'm fascinated by what the Seahawks are going to do with DK Metcalf. They gave him a 3-year deal back in the summer of 2022. That free agency for DK Metcalf doesn't happen until 2026. So he's got this year, then 1 more year on the contract. So next year enters in the final year of his contract. You have Lockett, who they just gave a new deal to. He's older. And you just drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba. Do the Seahawks maybe look at it and say, we don't want to pay DK Metcalf $30 million a year? And if that's the case, then he could potentially be on the move, and a place like New England could come calling again. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is Mike Vrabel. I actually thought Mike Vrabel would have been the perfect selection for the Seahawks to replace Pete Carroll with. They didn't like to do that. Mike Vrabel is on the Browns staff this year. And you see him like run around the practice field. Stefanski, if this was going into last year, I'd be like, oh, Vrabel could take Stefanski's job. But Stefanski now is, without a doubt, a top 10 coach of the league, 2-time coach of the year, and he's taken the Browns to the playoffs twice. So him being Vrabel now a coaching and personal consultant, I don't think he's in danger of taking Stefanski's job. But we talk about this story with the Eagles that nothing was really new about it, but it highlights the just not great relationship and the icy relationship between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Vrabel could definitely be in play next year for the Eagles. He could be in play for the Cowboys. If the Giants end up moving on from Daboll, which I don't think they will, he could be in play with the Giants. Those are 3 jobs for sure. In the NFC West, none of those jobs are opening up. If the Cardinals are really bad, do you get rid of Gannon after 2 years? And you have Monty Ossenfort there, potentially. But I really wouldn't think that that's going to be the case. NFC North, no one in that division is opening up. NFC South, Saints could open. Bucks, I guess, could open. But Vrabel, you run into either of those destinations? I would say no. And then the AFC, like Buffalo would be a good spot. If they get rid of McDermott, I don't think they're going to get rid of McDermott. I think they're happy where they are. Imagine Vrabel coaching the Jets with Rodgers next year. That actually wouldn't be a bad 1-2 punch. AFC West, Raiders going to keep Pierce. Obviously, Andy Reid's not in danger. Sean Payton's not in danger. Harbaugh, no. AFC North, no. And could you get back inside the AFC South? The Jaguars aren't going to get rid of Doug Peterson. Colts aren't going to get rid of Steichen. And the Texans aren't going to get rid of DeMeco Ryans. So it seems like it's either the Jets next year for Vrabel, assuming Saleh gets let go, which that's not a lock. Buffalo maybe. But you look at inside the NFC East, we talk about Bill maybe landing in the NFC East. What about Vrabel landing inside the NFC East as well? All righty, we'll take a time out. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, we'll do a little Winkler Wednesday with Bart Winkler, the host of the Bart Winkler Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network. Weeknights from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Let's get the latest Infinity Sports Network update with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Jim Harbaugh isn't going back to college anytime soon, but today he received a 4-year show cause penalty for impermissible contact with players and recruits during COVID. Lauri Markkanen has thrived in Utah the last 2 years and is staying there for now, coming to terms in a 5-year extension worth $238 million. Lots of baseball action this afternoon. They are playing 2 in Cleveland today, and the Diamondbacks rolling again. 17 wins in 20 games as they defeated the Guardians 7-3. Game 2 is just underway. They are scoreless in the first. The Yankees have a 2-0 lead over the Angels in the bottom of the first. They open the day with a half-game lead over the Orioles in the AL East. The White Sox, after snapping their 21-game losing streak, lead the A's 2-0 in the bottom of the fourth. Bottom 6, it's the Astros 5, Rangers 2, and the Cubs have a 6-2 lead over the Twins in the bottom half of the 7th inning. At the Olympics right now, quarterfinal action, and U.S. women's basketball team leads Nigeria 58-33. Quincy Hall wins the gold in the 400 meters. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
It's an epic battle for the Infinity Sports Network. Zach.
Lethargic, putrid, pathetic. Quitters. They're quitters. What a joke.
Bart.
Something fun to talk about. That's what we do here. It's like, hey, guys, it's like we're just hanging out at a bar talking sports.
It's time for Winkler Wednesday. Only on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, the fantastic, tremendous, wonderful, great, sensational. All right, I'm running out of words that I could say. Bart Winkler joins us from the Bart Winkler Show. You can listen to it weeknights right here on the Infinity Sports Network and many of these same Infinity Sports Network affiliates, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Bartholomew, how are you?
I got pulled over last night on my way home.
Are you serious?
I was so mad.
So you do the show, you get out 1 a.m. Central Time from the Milwaukee studios, and what happened?
So it was right as I left, and a cop does a quick U-turn, and so I know he's pulling me over. I don't know why.
Okay.
But I know he's going to pull me over. And then I don't know how many times you've been pulled over in your life. I'm at about 50.
I am 2 times.
So 2 times?
Only 2 times. I'm a good driver.
I get pulled over like once a quarter.
And also, when I get pulled over, I have like PBA card after PBA card, so I get off the hook.
So I'm driving, and then the cop, this is my problem. The cop rides you, tailgates you.
Yes.
And you know you're going to get pulled over. It's very clear you're going to get pulled over. But the lights don't go on. And he rides you just long enough that
you should have floored it. You should have floored it, Bart.
I know. He rides you just long enough that you're thinking, maybe I'm not going to get.
Were you in a white Bronco? Just wondering.
No, so he pulled me over. Shut up. Because my license plate is unreadable. Because like the letters and numbers are falling off.
Oh, okay.
But in Wisconsin, they're changing the format of the license plate.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want a new license plate because I like the old format better. So I've been riding these old license plates until someone makes me do something about it. And the cop's just like, yeah, you got to get fixed. I'm like, did you write me up? Is it in this? And they're just getting fixed. I go, okay. I mean,
that was it?
Yeah.
You should have thanked him. Could have easily given you a ticket.
For what?
For having a bad license plate. Crummy license plate.
Then I sped out of there as fast as I've ever driven in my life.
Yeah, 3 times. It was actually 3 times I've gotten pulled over. One, a cop said I tried to cause an accident turning into a mall, which I really think that they just thought.
Tried to cause? Wow.
Yeah, I got a citation, intent to cause an accident. I was turning into a mall going to like a birthday party when I was in college, and I really do believe that they just thought my friends and I were like all smoking pot. And that's why the cop pulled us over, because like he like walked up to the car and I'm like, why are you pulling me over? And he didn't really like have an explanation. So my friends are convinced that they were profiling us for trying to smoke pot. So yeah, he said I got intent to cause an accident. I turned left into a mall, and that one I still don't know to this day.
I'm glad I got free last night because I was baked out of my mind. So. I'm just kidding.
Bart's just kidding. He's kidding, everyone. Come on, what are we doing here, Bart?
Kidding.
Bart suspended. I can hear the headline now. The other time was...
Oh, I'd kill for any headline.
Yeah.
Any headline. Oh, please. One headline about my show. My God. Please.
I was texting on a bridge and the car was stopped, and I got out of it because I said I was just trying to go on Waze to try to find my way home coming back from Philadelphia. And the other one, I was speeding. I was going 15 miles over, and the cop pulled me over, which is not like crazy 15 miles over, but technically illegal. So those are only 3 times. Resulted in a ticket, a citation, and then you're good to go. That was it.
All right. Well, good for you.
Let me ask you, though, about the Packers, because every time we talk about the Packers, it's Jordan Love, Jordan Love, Jordan Love, Jordan Love, Jordan Love. Wide receiving-wise, in the league, we've seen teams have a lot of good number 1 wide receivers, and then many teams have a good 1-2 punch. The Packers, Christian Watson, very good. Romeo Doubs, good wide receiver. Jaden Reed, Wicks, what is the ceiling for the Packers wide receiving unit, and what are your expectations for them this year?
Well, it's very exciting. It's almost reminiscent of the Super Bowl year 14 years ago, with Greg Jennings and Donald Driver, James Jones, Jordy Nelson, all these guys together. The ceiling, I think, is high. I have no idea who the number 1 is going to shake out to be, or the number 2. Jordan Love was asked about that, and I loved his answer. He said,
"Can any of those guys? Can you see them getting like a third? Like now, wide receivers get $30 million a year, $28 million. Do any of those guys you look at them and you say, okay, you got a $28-30 million a year guy on the team?"
Well, if Brandon Aiyuk wants 30, I think all these guys can get 30. I mean, if we're just going to give $30 million to anybody who catches 80 balls.
You're not a fan of Aiyuk?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
My answer on the Packers is they're all good, and I like that they're all good.
Mm-hmm.
When there are stories that happen in sports that you have no interest in them, but you have to talk about them.
Okay.
Because that, between Harbaugh this week and Brandon Aiyuk, we're doing this for how good is this guy? It's just these stories are so brutal.
So the Harbaugh story is just ridiculous because he's already in the NFL. So the NCAA,
we all know they
trying
cheated.
To be a tough guy.
We all know why he left. Who cares?
Yeah, it was like an insignificant infraction for being serious. They put the ball down, and everyone knew what was going on, and they beat Alabama, they beat Penn State, they beat Ohio State, they beat Washington. The story ends right there. That's when the story ends. But the NCAA to now say, oh, we're going to issue him a 4-year show cause and also suspend him for, it's it would be like if we were working together, you left my show to go somewhere else, and I said, yeah, I'm suspending Bart for 4 years. He left.
Yeah.
Nothing you could do. The Aiyuk story, I think, is fun because the Niners get worse if they get rid of him. They could still win without him, but like you got the Steelers going for him. Steelers start taking football seriously again if they go make a trade for Brandon Aiyuk. The Browns, that one's weird because you'd be getting younger, but Amari Cooper's a damn good wide receiver.
He is.
So
I'm tired of the day. It's like if we're going to do daily updates on something, shouldn't it be somebody better than Brandon Aiyuk?
I think you're not giving him enough credit. The guy's a 1,300-yard wide receiver this past year. You know, he's a number one wide receiver in the league.
The Niners do this every year where they play hardball with a guy and they eventually pay him. I do think they're going to move on from him, though.
$26 million a year they offered him. The Pats pulled out. They were offering, I saw Mike Reese just before you came on, said $32 million a year.
Well, so they called Ayuk's bluff. He didn't want to go?
Yeah, that's basically what they did. Then they felt like they were getting used, and they said, okay, we're going to pull on out. So then what are you like really excited to talk about these days? You don't want to talk about hardball. You don't want to talk about Aiyuk. What is, if Bart could talk about one thing today, what's the thing that you want to talk about then?
Well, I already told you I got pulled over. That's a big one. I just want more of these. Like, we got the Hall of Fame game, and then we have to wait a whole nother. I just want to see some of these games.
By the way, are you sick right now?
Yeah.
You sound sick.
Sick enough that I should call in?
You mean call out?
Sure, call out.
You say call in?
Call in sick.
I'm a call out guy. Like you're calling out of work.
No, you call into your office to say you are sick.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but if I'm saying, oh, I don't feel well, I'm calling out of work, I'm going to call David Mayernick. I'm not saying, hey, I'm calling in. What are we doing?
What? You call out, you can't call out. You call out.
I'm calling out of work. No one says calling in. I'm calling, like, that would imply to me that you're calling in to work.
What do your cronies say?
Stu. I could ask Stu this question. Stu.
I'm with Zach. Call out.
Yeah,
I've always called out.
We could also say anything and Stu would agree with me when you're on, though. Remember, Stu works with me. Doesn't work with you.
Oh, yeah. Forgot. I like to talk about the Olympics.
Oh, please. That's all. You care about the Olympics?
You don't. You're wearing red, white, and blue colors.
I think this is actually more purple. I would say purplish, lavenderish. I think I could also just be colorblind.
I've been watching the Gold Zone every day.
All right, here's my take on the Olympics. All right, Simone Biles great. Men's basketball, you know they're going to win. Everyone's going to crush Steve Kerr. It's like, if I'm Steve Kerr, I'm not even coaching anymore. The Olympics, I would just go have vacation. And the women's basketball, does anyone care? Because Caitlin Clark's not in it. Like, seriously. Those are my takes on the Olympics. I did watch, I don't even know what I was watching. It was like there was a balance beam and people like turning around on the balance beam and doing a bunch of things that looked like you need a great core. That was exciting. Outside of that, I've had zero interest.
All gymnastics.
Yeah, it was. I know it's gymnastics. I don't know what the actual act is.
Sounds like the floor exercise.
Yeah, and also the 3-on-3. Everyone thinks it's rigged against the U.S. From what I read.
It is. Yeah, they don't let the best play. Yeah. Jimmer Fredette was our guy.
Mm-hmm. And I saw he was getting massaged very interestingly when he hurt his groin.
I like the Olympics. I fall in love with a new athlete every day.
Who's the athlete you love?
Oh, there's a U.S. volleyball player that I thought was cute. There was a swimmer somewhere that I was crushing on.
So let me ask you this: Eagles, you in or out on the Eagles this year with the Siriani hurt stuff that came out today?
I'm still kind of in on them. I'm still more in on the Cowboys.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm out on the Cow. I think they missed the playoffs. There's too many distractions there. You got the quarterback not paid, the wide receiver not paid, the edge rusher not paid, the coach not paid. I think they're playing with fire. And they got worse.
Let me try something with you.
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you two different sentences. React to what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach, I really think that this year the Dallas Cowboys are going to go to the Super Bowl.
You want me to react right now?
Yeah, how would you react to that?
You're crazy.
Okay. Yeah, here's my other sentence. Yeah, Zach, I really think this year the San Francisco 49ers are going to go to the Super Bowl.
I don't think you're crazy at all. That's fair.
Hey, neither team's won in 30 years.
Okay. The 49ers.
But everybody in the media, you're probably one of them. You all want to be friends with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch.
I just ripped Kyle Shanahan in the last hour because he's annoyed that Brandon Aiyuk gave him a bro hug, reportedly, according to Mike Silver. That's why he wants to trade him. I think Shanahan is a tad overrated. I do, but the guy, he at least he's still a top 5 coach. He gets to the NFC Championship games. He gets to Super Bowls. The Cowboys haven't been to a Super Bowl or an NFC Championship game since the 1995 season. There's a big difference between them.
Won a Super Bowl in 30 years.
There's
but
still a difference.
If you say anything good about the Cowboys, you're crazy. But if you say anything good about the Niners, oh, that's a very smart pick. You must know ball.
Yeah, well, the Niners have a loaded roster. The Cowboys don't have a loaded roster.
Yeah, and they can't do anything with it because their coach is bad.
I wouldn't say he's bad. He's good. He's very good. Just not as great as what some people make him out to be. He's not Lombardi, I'll tell you that. You happy?
He's not prepared for the biggest game of his life. Doesn't know how overtime works in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Man, you're in a really salty mood today.
Well, I'm sick.
Yeah. You got to, I would say drink some soup, but that's not going to cool you off. I think you got to, just bathe in really cold water tonight to cool you down a bit. So call in and then jump in the bathtub.
No,
cold water only.
I gotta work.
Why? You have off days. You have sick days.
America needs me tonight.
Just put Shep in the microphone. You guys will be fine.
America needs me. Okay. And you know what, Zach?
Yes.
I need them.
Okay. Well, we don't need you anymore, so we appreciate you joining us today. There he is. He's Bart Winkler. Man. Someone mess with his Cheerios today? Got an angry little fella there. It's like an elf. We got an angry elf. Coming on back. NFL teams facing the most pressure this year. I got my top 5 for you next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3. It is our radio program. If you don't know it by now, it's the Zach Gelb Show. And if you haven't been made aware by now, it's the Infinity Sports Network. I'm thinking about teams under pressure this year. And I wanted to make a list here. Top 5 teams under the most pressure entering this season. I'm going to go from 5 to 1. In at number 5, I actually think it's the Chicago Bears. The Bears have expectations this year. And it's not just to be It's not just to be bad. It's to be good. And I know they're in a tricky division. Lions, Super Bowl contender. Packers were in the divisional round a year ago. The Vikings, they got offensive players. Defensively, they improved last year. But they're looking like Sam Darnold's going to start, and then inevitably they'll go to J.J. McCarthy. Whenever that's going to happen and that transition happens, that makes me out on the Minnesota Vikings. But I look at Chicago. They got Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore. You got Cole Kmet. You have enough at the running back position and a defense with Matt Eberflus that's got some talent on it, starting with Jalen Johnson in the back end. So I look at this Bears team, and recent history matters. Like, you look at the Texans, they went from the bottom to a playoff team in a snap of a finger because they had the quarterback that uplifted the entire franchise. And did the Texans really have great players on the offensive side of the ball? Like, Tank Dell is good, but no one's looking at him last year as a number 1 wide receiver to start the year. Nico Collins, I was a fan of his, but no one's looking at him as a number 1 wide receiver. So, Devin Motor Singletary, solid running back, but he had some consistency issues. Like he was inconsistent in Buffalo. So you take a glance in terms of the Bears and what Caleb Williams is walking into. It's an infinitely better situation than what Stroud was walking into last year. And if you would have told me before last season, like this time last year, who's the quarterback that you think will be better in the pros? Is it Williams or is it Stroud? Most people would say Caleb Williams. So I look at the Bears. I'm not saying win the division. I'm not saying go win 11, 12 games. But it seems like the ceiling for Chicago this year is 10. But this was a team last year that won 7 games, and they got better this year. So just repeating what you did last year isn't good enough. 8-9 would even feel disappointing. Like this should be a 9 or a 10-win team. So I look at the Bears as having expectations and having pressure on them entering this year. And you know what? There's a lot of times when a coach gets hired and he's not a household name, people trash the hire, and I've done it, trust me. So I don't want to be hypocritical here. I'll tell you when I'm about to say something that sounds hypocritical, if I've done it as well, I'll be the first one to admit it. Did anyone ever think Matt Eberflus was going to end up being a good hire? Now, he's still got to prove it. But year 1, they were 3-14. Last year, they improved. They were 7-10. And you know what I say about teams that coaches that take over basically nothing? Year 1's a wash. Year 2, get better. Year 3, go make the playoffs. That's the plan that you outline. Eberflus doesn't make the playoffs. I'm not saying he's definitely out of a job, but you can't walk away from this feeling of the season feeling that you don't have the right head coach. And in Hard Knocks last night, they revealed Eberflus changed the look a little bit. And he used to be clean shaven, now has a beard. They have a barber in the Bears facility, and he's getting his hair cut. That was the oohs and the ahs about Hard Knocks. Stu, I don't know about you. We should get a barber around here. We have a Dunkin' Donuts coffee lounge. We should strike some sponsorship deal with the barber. Could you imagine we just had a barber on call and we get our hair cut whenever we wanted? That would be awesome.
Great. That'd be very useful. Yeah, I'd love that.
The only problem here, there is usually a hygiene issue here. So you would think it's on the responsibility of the barber to clean up his space. I could see the barber not doing that, and then you just have a room full of hair. And that would be nasty. Like there are some nasty things. And this is a much better office than where this company was before they moved here in Kaufman Astoria Studios, which was like rat infested. And it was disgusting. Child Protective Services room was called to my dad when he would take me to work with the lack of cleanliness that was around that place. But I could see that becoming a very dirty situation if we did get a barber here, if the barber did not clean up after himself.
Yeah, I agree. Especially on the weekend, it would not be good.
Yeah. I don't think they would have the barber in on the weekends. I think it would just be a Monday through Friday.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be my guess. Anyway, Bears are under pressure this year. They're in at number 5. Number 4, it's the Dallas Cowboys. They probably are on most national host lists higher up. The 3 that I have in front of them, I actually have expectations, though, for those teams. The Cowboys, it's almost like the boy who cries wolf at this point. Like, even if they are sitting there and they're looking like they're going to be really great, they're never great. The last 3 years, 12 wins, 12 wins, 12 wins. Back to back to back, belly to belly to belly, 12-win seasons. When it resulted, 1 year they got to the divisional round. 1 year. The other 2 they lost in the first round to the 49ers, and last year they got dismantled by the Green Bay Packers. And as I just said to Bart, I look at the Dallas Cowboys, they got worse this past offseason. After Jerry Jones said they were all in, I was going to say rest in peace, Skip Bayless. Like he didn't actually pass away, but now he's out of a job at Fox. And he tweeted out, Jerry Jones, all in, pause, comma, my ass. The importance of the comma. But they said they were going to be all in. And this past year, You look at Dallas and what they did this offseason, they were not all in. It's like they were all out. And now you got a lot of guys that aren't paid for the future, and they're starting to wonder what their status is with the organization. I think Dallas, the farthest I'm willing to go with the Cowboys this year, they're not getting to a Super Bowl. They're not getting to an NFC Championship game. I don't even think they win this division this year. I don't even consider that a possibility. Like, I would be stunned if the Eagles don't win the division this year. I think the ceiling for the Cowboys is wild card team. I don't think the Cowboys are going to be terrible, but I think they're going to be 8-9, 9-8. I don't see this team being a double-digit win team this year. In number 3, this is a team that has expectations. This is a team that has a well-rounded team, but there's a chemistry issue. And that chemistry issue was highlighted today. It was more reiterated today by the Tim McManus article by the ESPN. Because in that article, it highlights the problems going back to last year between Nick Siriani and also Jalen Hurts, and how Siriani's taking a more hands-off approach with the offense. Kellen Moore, who's a little bit overrated, is now running that offense. And you have a issue between Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. And in the article, right, it asked, it was right after, I think at the end of minicamp, it said, and it had to do with, the changes and what does that say about Nick Sirianni? And that was asked to Jalen Hurts, which is like an easy question to respond. The question was, what have you noticed about Nick being open-minded to change up the offense like he has? What does that say about him? And that was at the final day of minicamp in early June. Hurts responded, he said, followed by a pause and a short, closed-mouth laugh. I mean, that's great. It's a great question. I don't know that I know the answer to it. So there's something there. They're going to pretend like nothing's there, like how the Bills pretended Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs had no problem last year, right? In reality, we know there's a problem, and Stephon Diggs no longer on the team now. The Eagles the other day, right, had Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. When Kay Adams was there, they're driving around in a golf cart and everything's all right. Like, come on. They're putting on a front. And there's a chemistry problem in the Eagles locker room. And the players say they love Nick, but they love Nick because they walk all over Nick. And what does Nick Sirianni do? He's not calling plays. He's handing over the offense to Kellen Moore. He has issues with the quarterback. Now, to his credit, he's been to the playoffs 3 straight years. All 3 years on the job. He's been to a Super Bowl. But with how last year ended, with them going 10-1 to start the year and having one lousy win down the stretch, Belichick was available. Harbaugh was available. Mike Vrabel was available. They elected to keep Nick Sirianni, and I fear that derails their season. So there is pressure on the Eagles this year with the roster that's Super Bowl expectations, but you have the right coach to win the Super Bowl. Here was Jalen Hurts, by the way. Little back and forth about this ESPN report that came out today, and it seemed like he was blown away by the timing of this report.
What was the key piece of advice that Wink gave you that kind of you could take into this season?
I'm curious to see where is this coming from randomly, this Wink stuff.
There was a report from ESPN this morning that said he contacted him
before the Bucks game.
Something so long ago. Why is that relevant now?
I didn't write it.
First we heard it
out today.
Yeah.
Who wrote it?
I wrote it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why is that relevant now?
Why is it relevant?
Yeah.
Trying to give proper context from what happened last season, so we have a better understanding of where we are now.
Okay. Well, I think for certain things, I appreciate what you guys do and everything you guys bring, the attention and sometimes the understanding. I think sometimes people are only able to know what they understand. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know. But in that regard, I think, where we are is you have reports and you have rumors and then you have reality. And, we're in reality right now. And we got different people doing different things and we have different responsibilities in that natural nature. But ultimately, we're just attacking it day by day. But my natural nature is to block out the external factors.
I don't know, Stu. I hear that. He's clearly annoyed that this is getting rehashed. But he didn't do a good job trying to dispel the issue. It'd be like if you had an issue and you were like, why is that coming out today? And then, there's fact and there's fiction. And a lot of what comes out isn't the projection of reality. Like, you never really said that it isn't true. You're just kind of chastising the reporter that put it out there.
Yeah, if there wasn't an issue, he would just answer the question and dispel kind of anything that would be problematic, if you will.
Now, let me speak from experience, because there's a narrative today that the Eagles reporters are just making things up. I just got a tweet, and it's one tweet. Fun fact, it's from ITSSKYLO. So, however I'm supposed to say that. It's Glow, maybe? It's just random Twitter account responding to one of my videos that I just put out about the Eagles. Fun fact, Eagles reporter make lies and exaggerate things. Been that way ever since forever. We have crazy fans and even crazier media. I'm not saying everything that gets reported is correct, but I remember being in Philadelphia, hosting on Philadelphia radio, when a guy by the name of, it's either Joe Santoliquito or Joel Santoliquito, he had this piece all about Carson Wentz. And there was this radio guy by the name of Zach Gelb that shredded the report. This is when I used to believe in Carson Wentz. I shredded the report. And I'm like, this guy barely is even around the team. How does he have all these sources? Almost everything he said in that article ended up being right. I don't think there's anything that's inaccurate about this article today. I don't think there's anything inaccurate about this article. But there's this notion that, the media's lying, the media's exaggerating thing. I actually had, I would say, a prominent NFL analyst text me today. And he was reading the story, and he texted me because he knows I'm connected in Philadelphia, right? And I work there. And, it's a friend of mine. And he said, why do people say the Philadelphia media is spreading fake stuff? And I said, are you talking about the Siriani article that just dropped? I haven't read it yet. About to. Guy said, yeah. So then I read it, and I wrote back, I just read it. Don't see what could be fake. I think it was clear Hurts and Siriani weren't on the same page last year, and now Siriani is taking a more hands-off approach and trusting more to deal with Hurts. Seems fair to me in the reporting. And then the guy said, yeah, you're right. And then I responded back, I guess some may be upset with the timing of it. This is before I even heard the Hurts audio. Because it was last year, but the article is more so how they are fixing last year, this year. I would say Nick has to make the NFC Championship game this year and improve his relationship with Jalen to keep his job. Player will win this battle with this contract 10 times out of 10. He said, yeah, it's 100% accurate and fair. That's what I think the situation is here. And it's concerning to me the way that Jalen handled it today. And the reason why I say that's concerning is if you can't understand that what happened last year is still a story this year until you fix it, then, dude, what are we doing? And I think Jalen's poised to have a big year, but if it doesn't end with you back in the Super Bowl, people are going to say, not a success. I think they just have to make the NFC Championship game for Sirianni to keep his job. But not only you have to win, to some extent, the coach has to be on the same page with the quarterback. Because if they're not, and if they can't find the way to still be amicable, that contract with Hurts is going to win out over Sirianni. Because they have the talent to win a Super Bowl. So I think there's a lot of pressure on the Eagles. They're in at 3. So Bears 5, Cowboys 4, Eagles 3. In at number 2, it's the Niners. See, at least the Eagles, they won a Super Bowl a few years ago. As Bart pointed out, 49ers haven't won a Super Bowl in a long time, and they've been close. They've been up twice against the Chiefs by 10, haven't slammed the door shut. Brandon Aiyuk may or may not be there. We'll see. But even if he's not, they still have a Super Bowl team. You don't know how many more chances you're going to get. People think, the Niners have this big open window. That window could slam shut real quickly. And then in number 1, the team with the most pressure on them, it's the Jets. Because we can define pressure in many ways. Like some of these teams, they have pressure to win, but if they don't win, their coach won't lose a job. Some of these teams, hey, if you don't win, your coach is going to lose a job. The Jets this year, Robert Saleh is coaching for his job, and Aaron Rodgers, we got to see if you could bounce back from the Achilles injury. And the Jets, they have to make the playoffs. They don't make the playoffs this year with all the hype around them and all the talking points about them. Man, this is then back-to-back years, and last year given pass because the injury just sucks. But it then turns into a circus, and it allows a Jet fan to say, hey, same old Jets. So those are my 5 teams entering this year under the most pressure in the NFL. 5 Bears, 4 Cowboys, 3 Eagles, 2 49ers, and the JTS Jets in at 1. Stu, any other teams you want to throw into the conversation?
Yeah, I'll give you one in each conference.
Okay.
AFC, I will give you the Dolphins.
Let's go on.
The fact you just paid Tua, you just paid Tyreek, you just paid Waddle. Again, I don't know if McDaniel would be on the hot seat or fired if they don't make the playoffs. Or
Stephen Ross is a wild card. He's only getting older.
Correct.
But I think
right.
they would have to really bleep the bed to.
They'd have to be
fire
really
him.
bad. But I just think this team has so much potential. The potential's kind of, receivers don't age as well. So, Tyreek gets older, Waddle gets older. It's going to be a little tough. But I don't know. I just think the Dolphins are a team that you kind of want to see that next step, winning a playoff game, getting far into conference, maybe to the conference championship game this year.
So I do a weekly hit, as you guys know, with WQAM in Miami. And they're like kind of dubbing me as a Dolphins hater, even though I picked them to win the division last year. How quickly they forget. But with my guys Hockman and Crowder and Alejandro Solano. And they are saying I'm a Dolphins hater because I just don't think Tua is a great quarterback. I just think he's good. And I picked the Dolphins to finish third in the division this year. And they said, well, how many rosters are better than the Dolphins? I'm like, not a lot. But I go, last year they were perceived to be the team that was going to win the division, and Buffalo had a bunch of problems. They couldn't get the job done. They got a lot of talent. You're right on that. You got Mostert, you got Waddle, you got Hill. OBJ is their third receiver. You got Tua. You got Devon Achane. And on defense, I know you lost Wilkins, but you'll get Chubb back eventually from the injury. You got Jalen Phillips back eventually from the injury. You have Jalen. Like, they got talent there. And right, it's not like Stu saying, hey, they got to go win a Super Bowl. They got to win a playoff game. And I said to them, I think it's more likely that they miss the playoffs rather than get to an AFC championship game this year. Because I think they could win one playoff game, but it's like, then they get into the second round. If they're going up against the Chiefs, if they're going up against the Bengals, if they're going up against the Bills, even the Texans, I don't really love their chances. So that's the way that I operated that. But Dolphins are good one. They're definitely under pressure.
NFC, I'll go with the Falcons. You spend in the offseason, you bring in Kirk Cousins, the veteran quarterback you need.
And drafted a quarterback in the
And
top
you drafted a quarterback, so that pick looks bad if you are, let's say, one game out of a playoff spot where they could have drafted someone that was an immediate need. I don't know. You're in the easiest division in football. They have a really good chance to make the playoffs. And
well, it's the same thing as the Saints last year.
Yeah.
Like the Saints, anything short of winning division championship, you can't spin it. That's why when Mickey Loomis tried to do that when they went 9-8, it's like, okay, what the heck are you doing? Like, come on. It's you got to win the division. The Falcons are the pick to win the division this year. I absolutely. And also, let's add in the Belichick. Belichick wanted that job. And then Arthur Blank was talked out of it. So it would be a really bad look, but I do think they're going to win that division this year. Could you imagine they don't, though? Like, last year, I thought it was I expected the Saints not to win that division because Derek Carr's a quarterback. Kirk Cousins, don't get me wrong, not a Hall of Famer, but he's a good quarterback. He's a reliable quarterback. And if they can't win this division this year, geez, that is problematic. All right, good stuff there. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will come on back with a news brief. But first, the biggest pro football contests in Vegas are back. Circa Survivor and Circa Million are now up to $16 million in guaranteed prizes. You have 2 ways to win and no rake. Circa Survivor contestants select one team each week with no point spread. If the team loses or ties, the entry is eliminated. You can only pick each team once in a season. Last the longest to win it all with $10 million guaranteed. In Circa Million, make 5 picks against the spread each week for your share of $6 million guaranteed. Quarterly and full season payouts. The entry that does the worst wins $100,000. How about that? You must register at Circa Sportsbook in Nevada, Las Vegas, Henderson, or Sparks Reno. We are heading out to Circa Las Vegas, which I love going to. That stadium swim is unbelievable. Barry's the steakhouse as well. Phenomenal. State-of-the-art casino, all that jazz. And we'll be doing our show live from Circa on August 22nd and 23rd. Entries are now open and close September 7th at 2 p.m. Visit circasports.com. Once again, that's circasports.com for details and rules. Must be 21 and present in Nevada. Paid for by Circa Sports.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, extra news brief time. Here is Kyle Shanahan on the Brandon Aiyuk situation.
It's been at this point for a little bit, so it's nothing really new to me. I mean, you're always disappointed when you can't keep a hold of all your players or it's not going exactly right. I mean, I don't like losing anybody, so that's why I'm hoping it does work out here. But right now, we don't have that solved yet, so I hope it does.
I don't know, Stu. The first 5 seconds of that, it seemed like he was basically talking as if Brandon Aiyuk, it was signed, sealed, and delivered that he was going to get traded.
I was going to say, if someone just listening, it just turned on the radio as soon as that cut, they're like, oh, he must have gotten traded today. Nope. Not yet. It seems like it, but not yet.
I saw McCaffrey gave an interview yesterday, and he talked about Aiyuk in the past tense, which is like also like another thing. Like, I think everyone in there is just saying, okay, I think we know where this is heading to, that he's going to get dealt. But the report that I want to know, is it true or not? Like, let's get Kyle Shanahan in studio, shoot him up a truth serum, because this report from the San Francisco Chronicle, Shanahan is willing to move on from Aiyuk because he is bothered by the 26-year-old's behavior, including his recent bro hug with the coach. The bro hug is what pushed you over the edge? What are we doing? Here is Kyle Shanahan on the latest with Christian McCaffrey, as he's going to be out for a little bit.
Christian has a calf strain. Did a couple days ago. That's all right. He didn't pull it or anything, but you guys probably won't see him this preseason.
I don't see why you would play Christian McCaffrey. I don't think Christian McCaffrey needs the preseason to get ready for the season. You just have to basically wrap him up in bubble wrap, even during the season. You just need him for the playoffs. That's when you need Christian McCaffrey, because even though I don't think he should have been ranked in front of Patrick Mahomes in the top 100 list, he's one of the better offensive players in the league. He's the best running back in the league, and he's more than just a running back. All right, let's go to Chris Carter. I've been seeing this headline all throughout the day. I purposely did not listen to it because I wanted to hear the story on the air for the first time, even though I knew what the story was about, but I don't know how they got there. Here is Chris Carter on the Fully Loaded podcast. He told the story about almost punching Skip Bayless in the face.
I come on there on a Monday, and, we're trading barbs and everything. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I just level set it and was like, listen, if throwing the football is important in the NFL, Tim Tebow will never be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So he got defensive, and then he came back and said, well, that's why you didn't win a Super Bowl, which got nothing to do with nothing.
Agreed.
We went to commercial break. I took my earpiece out, and I told him, I'll never be on your show again.
Yeah.
And if you ever say anything like that to me again, I'll punch you right in the face.
Good for you.
I don't know. Is that a bit of an overreaction? Like, how many times, right, have you heard shows, and I don't remember the tone that it was said. I don't remember the conversation, to be fair. I'm not someone that watches Skip Bayless a lot. But how many times you, had a show on where there's an ex-athlete and the host just, makes a jab at the ex-athlete for not winning a Super Bowl? Like, Greg Giannotti and Craig Carter, when they work at Boomer Esiason, that happens all the time. So you took a shot at a quarterback, and that's why Chris Carter got so sensitive. Like, to say you're going to punch him in the face over that, Stu? I hate to give Skip Bayless the benefit of the doubt because that's idiotic to do with all the dumb things he said on television. But I don't know if that elicits a response of, dude, I'm going to punch you in the face.
No, punch in the face is like
You're talking about someone's family.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Not
and not Brian Kelly's
Bowl.
LSU family. I'm talking about actual family.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I do agree with you. I think Carter is overreacting a bit here. Or overreacted, I should say.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Play that for me one more time. I got to hear it again.
I come on there on a Monday, and, we're trading barbs and everything. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I just level set it and was like, listen, if throwing the football is important in the NFL, Tim Tebow will never be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
Not wrong.
So he got defensive, and then he came back and said, well, that's why you didn't win a Super Bowl, which got nothing to do with nothing.
Agreed.
We went to commercial break. I took my earpiece out, and I told him, I'll never be on your show again.
Yeah.
And if you ever say anything like that to me again, I'll punch you right in the face.
Good for you.
Well, if it's got nothing to do with nothing, then why are you so obsessed and annoyed? You think Chris Carter, by the way, Stu, has a fall guy if he was to punch Skip Bayless in the face?
That's right. Someone else who works there.
I'm just saying.
Be a producer's fault.
So we read this Athlon Sports story the other day about Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and it called into question the locker room, and it compared it to Grand Theft Auto, which Vice City, by the way, is my favorite video game growing up as a kid. And it talked about a gun problem in the locker room and a few other stories about bullying. Some things you read in the story and you're like, that's kind of football. Other things you're like, okay, if that's true, it's a big deal. And I highlighted yesterday, who's Steve Porter? Who is the writer? And just because I don't know your name doesn't mean the stuff can't be true. But when I went to his social media, I think it was his Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. One of them linked to a woman's profile and the other linked to a parody account. So I'm like, I can't take any of that serious if I can't get any information on this guy. Well, this guy is not a catfish reporter. He actually does exist. and he made an appearance today on the Dan Lebitard show, where I will say when I was watching this, because I watched the entire thing, it was like 10 minutes. It was very boring. It was like typical, like traditional reporter. But he even looks fake on the Zoom. Like it looks like a hologram or something like that. But here's Steve Corder on the Dan Lebitard show on the gun culture in Dion's Colorado program.
It's rampant there. There's a video that's circulating that I actually found after the piece where they're asking, I believe it's Bucky is going around asking who's the most strapped on the team, and people are giving their opinions. It's not just one person. It's multiple people. I found a video also last night of Travis Hunter and Dion fishing, and there's a gun in plain sight while he's fishing. So it seems like it's just part of the culture.
And let me give you one more. Here is Steve Corder on the most outlandish story in this, all of his reporting about Colorado football on the Dan Lebitard show.
What do you think were the most outlandish details in your report?
The incident between Washington and Jordan Seaton. Basically, Jordan was asked to show his manhood, and him and Washington got into a fight. There's a picture that is of Seaton that was taken, I believe, 2 days later, that he's obviously bruised. His lip looks busted. And again, this came to me after the fact, after the story came out. You know, like I said, I understand hazing. I understand things go on in a locker room. But it seems like it's just a little too much that's going on that need to be reported on.
So I don't even know how to react to this stuff because I don't know what's true and what's false, and I still don't know much about the reporter. It's the same reporter that had the story that like Coach Prime forced everyone to go to like the rap show that Shador was opening up for Lil Wayne. So obviously this guy has a source or sources from other places. In the interview, he said more and more information has come to him after he released the article, and he says it's worse. So Dion has denied it. So it's a he said type of situation. Framber Valdez was an out away from pitching his second no-hitter in his career. He had one last summer in August. And Corey Seager, who's on my fantasy team, so I appreciate the support. He broke up the no-no with 2 outs in the ninth. It's courtesy of Valley Sports.
Runner goes. And there's a swing and a high fly ball. Deep out to right. McCormick is back. It's gone! There goes the no-hitter! And the Rangers are off the mat! It's 4-2.
So, there you go. The no-no broken up. Also, breaking news. Well, it's not really breaking news. It happened last night. But big news. The White Sox actually won a game. They snapped their 21-game losing streak. Here is NBC Sports Chicago.
Everybody deserves a win after this streak.
This could do it. Out to left field coming in. Benintendi. And the streak is over. After 21 L's in a row, the White Sox come to the West Coast and get their first win in a long time. Say it with me. Southside, stand up.
Ack, what are you shaking your head about? You don't like the play-by-play guy.
I don't like the call. No comment.
Is that guy, John...
Striffen?
Striffen?
Sounds like him.
Yeah, he's been getting shredded a lot this year. You've seen... Well, I was gonna ask you about the broadcaster, but I just saw that you were not happy.
I just didn't like... I don't like... There are a lot of cliches, the L's,
yeah.
you know.
It also, you're making it sound like you won the World Series when you...
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to be excited, and it's the hometown call, and, you know, look, they just snapped the 21-game losing streak, so you got to be happy, but it just, I don't know, it just seems...
Seems like you're like...
Seems forced.
Yes, it seems like every fourth word you're just trying to be like cheesy announcer.
Yeah.
Like, here, wait, 21-game win streak, losing
It's
streak
almost
is
like
over.
you're trying to be
Yeah.
friendly with somebody who does not want to be friends with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, does that make any sense?
Sure. So. You say you don't want to be friends with me?
No, actually, I get that all the time from people. We don't want to be friends with you.
But come on, I'm really a great time.
Exactly. You know, and you're kind of like reinforcing that. That's what it.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
The announcer voice is a little bit too much for me there. It almost sounds fake. But what I want to ask you, you've seen a lot of bad teams. Is this the worst team you've ever seen?
It's right there. I can't. The '88 Orioles were bad, but this is like another level bad.
28 and 88.
It also just seems like there's
it's August. They don't have 30 wins.
Like when the Orioles were bad a couple of years ago. At least they started building prospects in the system. Now this team, it's just like it seems like they're just stuck in an abyss and have nowhere to go.
There's no hope.
Yeah.
The only hope is that the season's almost ending.
Yeah.
You know? I would say probably the two teams that come to mind are the Browns and the Lions, who both went winless in the NFL season.
Yeah.
But this is like the equivalent of not getting a win in a season.
But at least the Lions, when it happened, had Calvin Johnson and Matthew Stafford coming. The Browns, I don't remember who they. I don't think they had much hope. That was Baker Mayfield, correct? When they were winning.
Well, they eventually got Baker Mayfield.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But it's like, where are the White Sox going? They've been trying to contend for several years now, and it just keeps getting worse.
If I had to kind of describe the White Sox season, just based off headlines, it's Ozzie Guillen shredding the team on the postgame. It's the play-by-play announcer, what's his name again, John?
Schriffen.
Just getting into fights with the guys at 670 the score.
Yeah.
And then the team just always loses. Those are the three things this season that encapsulates what they've done.
Yeah, so. I mean, I don't know what more to
they suck.
add. They're just bad.
They're
just bad.
As Charles Barkley would say, they're terrible.
There's bad and there's lovable bad, and then there's this, and there's nothing lovable about it.
Yeah, this is like when you're a kid and your mom's like, "Here's broccoli."
Yeah.
No kid wants to eat the broccoli. Oh, okay, you don't want broccoli? Here's some spinach.
Exactly.
It's like, all right, when are you going to get to the good stuff?
Yeah.
Come on, Mom. What are we doing? All righty, we will take our final break of the day. We'll come on back. The NCAA has handed down maybe the most pointless suspension ever. We'll get to it on the other side. Update time first, though. The Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Spoiler alert, I'm about to give that NCAA suspension. Jim Harbaugh left Michigan. The school was already hit with probation, but today Harbaugh given a 4-year show cause penalty for impermissible contact with players and recruits during COVID. He, of course, is now the coach of the LA Chargers. Lauri Markkanen's best seasons have come in Utah, and he has earned a 5-year, $238 million suspension. Right now in the major leagues, the White Sox, after snapping that long skid that tied an American League record at 21 games, they are trying to make it 2 in a row, but in the bottom of the 8th, trail the A's by a score of 3-2. First of 2 at Yankee Stadium today. It's the Yankees with a 5-0 lead over the Twins, make that the Angels top of the 5th. The Diamondbacks, second of 2 in Cleveland, lead the Guardians 4-2, bottom 5. Josh Bell with a couple of home runs against his former team. Arizona won the first game 7-3. The Cubs top the Twins 8-2, and the Astros winners over the Rangers by a score of 6-4. Yordan Alvarez home run number 22. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, and it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jim in Cleveland says, Zach, Adam Schefter just released how the Cleveland Browns envision their new $2.4 billion dome stadium in Brook Park. Do you have a problem with the Browns potentially playing in a dome? You could submit a question by tweeting at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Yeah, I have a big problem. There is no way the Cleveland Browns home stadium should be a dome. When I think of Cleveland, I think of blue collar, bring your lunch to work, right? Have a construction cap on your cabeza type of fan, not afraid to get their hands muddy. I don't think of a fan base that needs a dome. Cleveland Browns football, bad weather, snowy, rain, it doesn't matter. The dog pound isn't in a dome. When you have fans screaming, "Here we go, Brownies, here we go, hoo, hoo," that doesn't seem to me like a fan base that needs a dome. What are you going to do? Put the Cleveland Browns fan in a dome stadium where they're serving like shrimp cocktail and caviar? That would be just a disgrace. It would be an absolute disgrace. Like the Cleveland sports fan, the last time they won a championship, it was the Cavs. I'll never forget this video that I saw. It was a burly man that was walking down the street during the parade. He saw horse crap. He picked up the horse crap, threw it up into the air, and ate the horse crap. And that fan base now needs a dome? And you know what? I'm actually going to take a shot at someone here. Our very own Maggie Gray. If she's not criticizing the way that Olympians celebrate, she's also saying that her Buffalo Bills, which would be the antithesis of a team that you would think needs a dome, she wants her team when they have a new stadium to have a dome. It's like fan bases like Buffalo and Cleveland. That's not a dome crowd. I would be really upset. I'd be really disappointed if the Cleveland Browns end up moving into a dome. It's like, and let's be real, as much as I love Cleveland, if you get a dome, Super Bowl in Cleveland, like, what are we doing? We don't need to have the whole NFL world go to Cleveland for a Super Bowl. NBA All-Star Game, fine. Super Bowl, come on. That's the only reason they're going to give a dome. But a dome for the Cleveland Browns. Like, Stu, the dog pound basically getting neutered into a dome. That, to me, is just something that should never happen.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. Like, the Packers are another one like that would never happen. Could you imagine a dome in Green Bay? No.
Chicago?
Buffalo shouldn't. New England shouldn't.
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah, a lot of those northern places where you expect the cold weather and snow, it just feels like football.
Like, for example, the Raiders. They moved to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You put them in an indoor stadium. No problem.
No, not a problem for a team like that. But
the Dallas Cowboys. I know it's a retractable roof, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
No problem with that. But, the Cleveland Browns?
No, you can't put the Browns there. No way.
That would be un-American. It really would be. Putting the Cleveland Browns' new stadium and making it a dome would be un-American. I can't stand for it. I can't live in a country where the Cleveland Browns get a dome or a retractable roof. It'd be a disgrace. It would just, Leroy Horde, who played for the team, who's a friend of the show. A guy like a big burly guy running back. He doesn't need to be in a dome. He wants to run through the snow, the sleet, the rain. That's fine. A dome? What are we doing? Yeah, you cannot put the Browns in a dome. All righty, the most pointless suspension ever by the NCAA. The NCAA has given Jim Harbaugh a 4-year show cause penalty and a 1-year suspension for his involvement in a COVID dead period recruiting violations. This is not related to the Connor Stallion sign stealing scandal. That was from Yahoo Sports. He doesn't coach in college football anymore. And if he was going to coach again in college football, he would have just stayed at Michigan. He wanted to go back to the NFL. He did everything he could at Michigan. And now he's leaving. Whether you think Harbaugh's in the right or the wrong, this is the most useless suspension ever. You're suspending a guy that's not in your sport anymore. He's not in college football. So we're going to give him a 4-year show clause and a 1-year suspension. So if he gets hired by any team in this 4-year show cause, he has to be away from that team for a full year. And then if it's after the 4 years, he still has to serve the 1-year suspension anyway. It's not as if Jim Harbaugh, who we know is a great football coach, not just a good football coach, but he accomplished everything he can in college. He's 60. So he's going to go take his next run at the NFL and try to win a Super Bowl championship, which he almost did when he was with the 49ers. 4 years there, 3 trips to the NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl appearance. So it's like a pointless suspension. It really would be, for example, let's say my old producer, Mike Biseglia, when I first started here, he left the company. it'd be as if I said, hey, Mikey B is suspended from our show for 4 years. He ain't ever coming back. So what's the point of the suspension? It's the dumbest thing ever. But this is the NCAA. Oh, people are saying we got no power. Oh, people are saying Harbaugh got away with anything. We'll show him. We'll show him. We'll give him a 4-year show cause and a 1-year suspension. Jim's attorney laughed at it. He was like, called it a kangaroo court and said, it's like you're in college and your high school said, oh, we're suspending you and we're not going to give you a diploma because you didn't sign the high school yearbook. Like, what are we doing? The guy's off to the NFL. He gave the middle finger to the NCAA, won a championship, and then bolted for the NFL. But this is the NCAA. They always got to pick a battle. Always got to pick a battle. What's the point of this suspension? The only people that are celebrating this suspension that actually think the suspension means something are Ohio State fans, quite frankly. It's the only fans. Oh, they got Jim. They got Jim. Oh, come on. What a joke. All righty, fun show today. Big thanks to Moist Mike. Big thanks to Stuart Kovacs. And a big thank you to Sean Pendergast for joining us, and also Bart Winkler. You know, maybe we should send Bart some cookies. Because, man, he was just in a miserable mood today. And I mean a miserable mood. He needs something to, like, uplift his spirits. He just sounded so down and out. That was very depressing, talking to Bart Winkler. Just as equally as depressing as the idea of the Cleveland Browns potentially playing in a dome. Yuck! All righty, big thanks each and every one of you for tuning in today. We'll be back mañana at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. All righty, everybody, we out. Have a great Wednesday evening. Bye-bye. Peace.